What if the version of love that feels the most intense is actually the version that's lying to you? Racing heart, can't eat, can't think, checking your phone every 4 minutes. You've probably been taught that this is what real love feels like. It's not. It's what fear feels like wearing love's clothing. And if you've spent years chasing that feeling, this video is going to be uncomfortable in the best possible way. If calm relationships have ever felt a little boring to you, while chaotic ones felt like the realest thing you've ever experienced, you're not broken and you're definitely not too much. You're likely experiencing something attachment psychology has been mapping for decades: anxious attachment, and the very specific way it rewires what your body interprets as love. Here's what almost nobody explains clearly. Anxious attachment doesn't just affect how you behave in relationships, it actually distorts your perception of the relationship itself in real time while it's happening. It convinces you that uncertainty is chemistry, it convinces you that panic is passion, and it convinces you that the slow, steady, low-drama kind of love, the kind that's actually safe, isn't love at all, because it doesn't come with the adrenaline you've learned to associate with caring deeply about someone. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your nervous system learned to confuse intensity with intimacy, why that confusion creates a kind of false urgency that makes healthy relationships feel wrong and unhealthy ones feel right, and what it actually takes to retrain your body to recognize real security when it finally shows up. Because once you can see this distortion clearly, you stop being at the mercy of it. Picture this. 3 weeks into seeing someone, and already there's a constant hum of urgency underneath every interaction. A delayed text reply doesn't feel like a delayed text reply. It feels like evidence. A slightly shorter goodnight message doesn't feel small. It feels like a verdict. And when things are going well, when he's attentive, warm, present, there's still this undercurrent of bracing, like waiting for the other half of the story to arrive. This is where it gets uncomfortable. That constant hum isn't actually about him. It's a deeply familiar internal state that existed long before he did. Attachment researchers have found that people with an anxious attachment pattern tend to move from 0 to 100 remarkably fast in new relationships, seeking intense closeness almost immediately, specifically because uncertainty itself feels unbearable. Slow building, gradually earned trust doesn't feel like patience to an anxious nervous system. It feels like danger, because slowness leaves too much room for the worst-case scenario to quietly take over, so the nervous system does something understandable even if it backfires. It tries to manufacture certainty fast. Through intensity, through merging quickly, through fleeting, every small signal is proof of where things stand. But that's only half the story. Because here's the layer underneath. A lot of what gets labeled passion in these early anxious relationships is actually something closer to a fire alarm. Researchers studying anxious avoidant pairings specifically have observed that intensity often gets misread as intimacy. High emotion, high stakes, constant motion, all of which feels alive and meaningful but is often actually distress wearing the costume of connection. If you grew up in an environment where love came with conditions, where you had to read a parent's mood before knowing if it was safe to ask for something, or where affection arrived unpredictably rather than reliably, your nervous system learned a specific lesson early. Pay extremely close attention, because the people you love are not guaranteed to stay steady. Here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. That early lesson doesn't politely retire once you become an adult. It just changes its address. It moves into your romantic relationships and starts running the exact same program. Scan constantly. Brace for disappearance, treat any silence as a potential threat. And because that hypervigilant scanning produces such a strong physiological response, racing heart, tight chest, that unmistakable feeling of being consumed by someone, your brain quietly files that sensation under love simply because it's the strongest emotional experience available. Meanwhile, calm, steady affection, the kind that doesn't trigger any of that internal alarm, can genuinely register as flat. Not because it's lacking anything, but because your nervous system has never been taught that calm and cared for can exist in the same place at the same time. Here's the deeper truth this entire video has been building toward. Anxious attachment isn't measuring how much you love someone, it's measuring how unsafe you currently feel. And those are two completely different signals that your body has, somewhere along the way, learned to read as the exact same thing. Think of it like this. Imagine your nervous system as a smoke detector that's been miscalibrated after years of false alarms in a house that genuinely used to catch fire sometimes. Even after you move into a new house, a new relationship, one that isn't actually burning down. That smoke detector doesn't know that yet. It goes off at the smallest hint of smoke, even steam from a shower, because its entire calibration was built around a different, more dangerous environment. The blaring alarm isn't proof that this house is on fire. It's proof that the detector is responding to its old trading, not its current reality. This is why you can be with someone genuinely kind, consistent, and emotionally available and still feel a persistent undertone of dread, like something is about to go wrong even when nothing actually is. The alarm isn't lying about how it feels. It's lying about what it means. This is also why false urgency shows up so often in anxious attachment. That pressing need to define the relationship immediately. To get reassurance right now. To resolve ambiguity before it's even had time to naturally clarify itself. That urgency feels like wisdom, like your gut warning you about something real. But it's frequently your nervous system trying to extinguish discomfort as fast as possible, which is a very different goal than actually assessing whether someone is trustworthy. And this is what's actually happening when intensity feels more like love than calm does. Your body has built its entire definition of caring deeply around the presence of anxiety. Which means the absence of anxiety doesn't feel like safety to you yet. It feels like absence. Period. But here's the part that should genuinely change how you see your own patterns. A miscalibrated smoke detector can be recalibrated. It just takes new, repeated information, lots of steam, no fire, over and over before the system updates what it considers dangerous. Your nervous system is not broken in some permanent way. It's running outdated software that hasn't yet caught up to your current life. So how do you actually recalibrate a system that's been sounding false alarms for years? Here's what genuinely helps. First, separate the sensation from the verdict. The next time you feel that familiar racing heart urgency, pause and name it out loud, even just in your head. This is my alarm system, not necessarily the truth about this relationship. That single act of naming creates a sliver of space between the feeling and the conclusion you'd normally jump to. And that sliver of space is where actual choice lives. Second, practice tolerating ambiguity in small doses on purpose. Instead of demanding instant clarity every time something feels uncertain, try sitting with a few hours of not knowing before reaching for reassurance. This isn't about suppressing your needs, it's about proving to your nervous system, slowly, that uncertainty doesn't always end in disaster, which is exactly the evidence it's been missing. Third, actively notice when calm is happening and name it as safety, not as nothing. When a conversation is easy, when someone is simply present without drama, consciously say to yourself, this is what secure feels like, even though it's quiet. You are essentially teaching your nervous system a new vocabulary word for an old, ignored sensation. Fourth, get curious about your alarm's original training ground. You don't need to relive your whole history, but gently asking yourself, when did I first learn that love was something I had to monitor closely to keep, often reveals that the panic was once a reasonable response to a real situation. It's just being applied to a present that no longer matches. Fifth, build a track record on purpose. Every single time you stay grounded through a moment of ambiguity instead of spiraling into urgent action, you're not just surviving a hard moment. You're providing your nervous system with fresh evidence that contradicts its old programming. Recalibration doesn't happen through insight alone. It happens through repetition. Here's the empowering part. You are never loving too much. You were trying to create safety in the fastest way your nervous system knew how. That strategy made complete sense for whatever version of you learned it first. It's simply no longer the only option available to you now. Real love was never supposed to feel like a fire alarm. It was supposed to feel like finally exhaling. If this gave language to something you've felt for years but never quite understood, tell me in the comments, has calm ever felt boring to you before it felt safe? Let's talk about it down there. And if you want more breakdowns like this one, on the psychology behind why we love the way we love, subscribe, because we're just getting started unpacking this together.